Hi, I'm Danny Ramos, and welcome to Hispanic Speak Out. We're on Spectrum Cable every week, and Roku, and also on YouTube. Our show is always about Hispanic issues, and we always interview congressmen, senators, and leaders of the community on issues that are pertinent to the community, so that the community has something to watch that will inform them. And we've been on the air for a long time, about 15 years. I'm here with Congressman Darren Soto, and we're going to have a little dialogue on some of the current issues that are going on in the United States and, of course, in the district here. Hi, Darren. How are you?
Doing great, Danny. Thanks for having me on the show.
You look very relaxed, considering.
I take stress well and work very hard. And you know, I'm always an optimist.
That's what you got to be. In politics, that's what you have to be. All right.
Not everybody can do that easily.
I know. Let's start off with, I got a call this morning from a woman who was knew that we were doing TV shows. She didn't know I was interviewing you, but she wanted to know if I could do something, ask some questions about the Venezuelan situation. Sure. Can you give us an update? Because I know that you guys here in the office were writing a bill. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So Venezuela is ruled by a murderous dictator, Maduro. They're no longer a democracy, sadly, and when you consider that they have the most profound number of resources, natural resources, of any South American company, it really is a shame. And so we've seen hundreds of thousands of refugees come to Florida and Texas, among other states. So over the past 5 or so years, we've been working on getting them temporary protective status, which would allow them to stay in the country while this crisis is going on. In this case, the murderous dictatorship that they're dealing with there. And finally, after passing it out of the House twice by law, it never passed the Senate though. So we got President Biden finally to approve it once he got into office, in his first 4 months in office actually. And it requires some studies and reports by the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of State. And so now we're coming up on about a year into it. We have 18 months approved, and now we're working on an extension. One of the other issues that many Venezuelans face now that they have temporary protective status, which you have to apply for. So if you're a Venezuelan who's here and haven't applied for TPS yet, you really want to do that. You can do that with a local attorney or through the Department of State website. But work permits are now the next challenge because we have 3 new TPS designations, and we have backlog because of visas of folks wanting to come travel on vacation here and folks who are holding back on citizenship. So we work a lot on helping people get their work permits, because we also established temporary protective status for Afghans after the war is over, and for Ukrainians now too. So there's a lot going on. The best advice to give people is work with your local member of Congress. We are allowed to work on these cases for constituents, those who live in East Orange County, all of Osceola County, or East Polk County. And we've been able to speed these up, but certainly you don't want to go it alone. So
what's holding it up? I got 2 questions for you. Number one, the Venezuelans that came in, did they come in on tourist visas, or how did they come in? Did a lot of them come in illegally and now are applying?
Various different ways. Some visa overstays, but many of them arrived unlawfully, but they were fleeing persecution. And so the federal government recognized it. Remember, we are the lawmakers. Something that's unlawful, and one day, after a law or a regulation, can be perfectly legal the next. So we always want to be careful with that word, that yes, they arrived here unlawfully, but now they are here lawfully under temporary protective status. But it persists for as long as the crisis is going on, in this case, the murderous dictatorship in Venezuela. But yes, the backlog is because we have a huge number of folks post-COVID. Remember, no one was traveling during COVID. Right. A lot of folks who were applying to be citizens and doing it even legally and coming here, they couldn't travel for a year and a half. So you have from almost nobody coming to the United States to now millions of people. And so we have a budget we just passed that was bipartisan to help the USCIS with this backlog. But I believe we need a supplemental budget to handle both the visas, both the security at the border, as well as these TPS applications that just were designated for Ukrainians, Venezuelans, and for Afghans.
Is this a political situation in order to get it through? In other words, are you getting cooperation on the Republican side of the aisle?
We got a handful of Republicans to help us, primarily from Florida with TPS. but by and large, the vast majority of Republicans have been opposed to it.
Okay.
In addition, we passed the Dream and Promise Act, which would have broadly given them pathways to citizenship along with our Dreamers. That passed the House with a handful of Republicans, but the vast majority voted no. And now in the Senate, they need 10 Republicans to join the 50 Democrats who are there. And that sadly hasn't happened yet. This is 2 terms in a row where we voted, passed this out of the House, but we have Republican obstructionism in the Senate. Even though we have a majority, just by 1 vote, right? You need 60 votes in the Senate for anything to pass that's not a budgetary bill. It's called reconciliation. So we haven't been able to get even 10 of the 50 Republicans in the Senate to vote for this, and so a lot of these things languish.
And that's the same thing with the Dreamers Act.
Exactly. Same thing with the DREAM Act. We have a lot of folks who talk a big game, but when it comes to voting for bills, they find every reason not to. And so those bills are still stalled because of Republican obstruction, and it's disappointing because I've voted for these bills now twice. We're talking about helping farm workers who've been here 10, 20 years, have a pathway to residency and citizenship. We're talking about Dreamers who know really no other country than this one. They arrived here as little kids, and then folks fleeing persecution. And we've done this before, Danny. As you know, with the Cuban community, after Fidel Castro had his massacre, so many families, they came to Florida and got adjustment status. And for many years, if they arrived, there was wet foot, dry foot policy that if they landed on dry land anywhere in the United States, they automatically were residents legally now and could apply for, they'd have to fill out paperwork, and then eventually they had a pathway to citizenship. So we make different adjustments to laws, and we are a nation of immigrants. We just happen to both be Puerto Rican, where we've been citizens and our families have been citizens for generations. But many other Hispanics have a much tougher journey to get here.
Okay. All right, let's jump to another topic. I think we covered that one pretty good. What's going on in Central Florida, where Central Florida is now out of over 3,000 counties. I think the number is, in the United States, there are 3,006 counties. And Central Florida, Orange County specifically, is number 3 in human trafficking in the United States out of those 3,006, which is amazing when you really think about it. You know, the home of theme parks is number 3 out of over 3,000 counties for human trafficking. Then we have what's going on also with utilities. They announced all the utility bills are going up. And now they've also, the landlords are increasing rents in Central Florida from 35 to 50%. I got a rent increase myself because I'm a renter. My rent went up $500 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. My rent went up 50%. So, and you know, I get out there, it's not a big issue for me, but when you have people who work at 7-Eleven and you have people working at Wawa, they can't afford the gas that they pump, you know, let alone apartments like this. What's the role of the federal government in all of this?
Sure, so let's unpack it because you have 3 issues.
Yeah.
First, let's talk about human trafficking. So picture it as several different types, because a lot of people see the sex trafficking, which is terrible, and that's something that we have our sheriffs actively pursuing, and then a lot of these folks, women are enslaved, they're put on drugs, and we're really looking at this differently than that they're as much at fault anymore, because a lot of them are in prison. But it also takes the form of everything from landscaping to cleaning services, where people come over unlawfully and then their employers say, we will tell the government about you if you don't work for $3 an hour or $2 an hour, well under the minimum wage. And so when you think about the tourism industry here, when you think about the landscaping industry here, and even in certain construction, this is why the first thing the federal government does is the FBI investigates these matters. And so you'll see now the state play a bigger role, and there's notices that are supposed to be put up at each workplace that talk about everything from safety rights to worker rights, being a victim of human trafficking. And so now you'll see, if you go to the stops on the turnpike, you'll see it in the bathrooms of what to look for. They'll literally have it on the way in. When I was at the turnpike the other day, they'll post it out in different public areas. So it could take many forms, and because of the tourism industry, the landscaping industry, the huge construction growth, we have very low unemployment right now, and so there's a high demand for workers. And so we all need to look out for these telltale signs. Someone who looks like they've been abused, someone who may not be able to speak English, someone who, for one reason or other, showing signs of distress. because it could be the landscaper down the street, it could be the cleaning woman, or it could be someone who was enslaved and put into prostitution. So it takes many forms, and so we all play a role in it in addition to the funding. For the rent, you know, the secret is out, Danny. Central Florida is one of the most popular places to live in the nation and beyond. So we have become an international market, which means that the federal, state, and local government each has a role to play to get more aggressive. We're sitting right now, I live right in this zip code. This is 34741, Kissimmee. A place where 20 years ago you could probably get an apartment for $600. It's now $2,000 a month because people want to live here. The problem is that that doesn't always correlate with the wages because you have folks coming down from the north. You're from New York, right? You're not the last one, right? There's others coming down from there.
Constantly.
And up from our family's native island of Puerto Rico and from other areas. So on the federal level, we passed the Build Back Better Act out of the House that had over $100 billion for affordable housing. While the infrastructure law passed, that bill did not pass in the Senate. So that was going to be one of the big sums of money. Another we were successful in getting. Under the American Rescue Plan, we got $1.3 billion for the state. It's under ourflorida.com, which there's still funding available. Half of that $1.3 billion is for mortgage assistance. The other half is for rental assistance. We also brought literally hundreds of millions to Central Florida for rental assistance during the pandemic. You may have seen a lot of those notices from Kissimmee or Orlando, Osceola, Orange, Polk County, areas that we represent. The state funds are more flexible, so it doesn't have to be as directly COVID related. It could be more just economic related.
So the feds is COVID related?
Both are federal funds, our taxpayer dollars that have come back down from Washington. But the ones that the federal government gave to the local government, they're more strict in that they have to be more related to COVID, while the ones we gave the state are more flexible to the economic fallout in general. And so for folks who are experiencing rental or mortgage difficulty, you can go to ourflorida.com and apply for these funds. And we helped secure, because sadly Florida was the last state to apply. And of course that didn't make the state super popular in Washington, so I had to write a letter of support for them to pull down the money that I did in a bipartisan fashion about 3 months ago. And I've worked even with some of the Florida state secretaries to help work on this issue. But there are other things that the state government and the local government can do. We're doing big things, but the state government cut affordable housing funds in half in the Sadowski Fund, which is paid by document stamp taxes. So rather than the $300 to $400 million that we would have had this year, it's only $200 million. And so that you could talk to your state legislator for. And locally, the last thing I'll say on this is we do have a limited form of rent control that can pass in Florida under Florida law, but it has to be voted on by the local city council or the county commission. Then it goes to a vote of the voters in an election. And then from there, if a majority votes for it, it only can last for a year. So I encourage you to talk to your city commissioners, your county commissioners, to say that you want rent control, that we are in an emergency. I certainly support it personally, and I'm going to continue to speak out about it. But in places like Kissimmee and Orlando's the only one really moving on this right now. So you asked a lot.
I know,
so
I know.
You got a lot.
All right. So we're going to take a break right now. This is Danny Ramos on Hispanic Speak Out. We ran the half hour, but we're coming back with another segment. So this is actually going to be a 3-segment show. We'll be right back.
Single year, because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Hi, I'm Danny Ramos, and welcome back from the commercial break. And I'm here with Congressman Darren Soto, and we're covering a lot of issues. But I want you to remember that there's going to be a march in Orlando, a public march. We want to have at least 5,000 people there, and that march will go to City Hall and then to Lake Eola, and it's going to be in August. So stay tuned to Facebook and look for Prayer March or Prayer. What was it, Jesse? What was the? Okay, you're going to cut it? Okay. Look for Prayer Walk for Humanity on all the social medias. It'll be up next week. And join and register for the prayer march. Okay? And we're here with the Congressman. We're going to continue the conversation. So what about small business?
Well, as you know, Latinas are one of the fastest growing small business owner segments in the nation. So first, we're very happy about the fact that we have now Administrator Guzman, a Latina at the helm of the SBA, one of 4 Hispanics in the Biden administration in his cabinet, along with Secretary Cardona, a fellow Boricua, who's the Department of Education Secretary, Secretary Mayorkas, a Cubano for DHS, for Homeland Security, and of course my dear friend Javier Becerra for HHS. And we know we've been through a lot. You know, I've been a small business owner for many years, as you know, a law firm. You've had many small businesses. So as we went through the pandemic, I was really proud to be able to support the Paycheck Protection Program, which allowed so many small businesses to be able to survive through what is a 100-year pandemic, at least we hope. And you know as well as I do, if those businesses didn't have that funding, you'd have a lot of folks going out of business. I know what it's like to make a payroll twice a month, and I know, like you know, that the small business community is one of the foundations of prosperity among Hispanics. What we're working on now is key initiatives going forward to create jobs. One is through infrastructure, and the other is through improving domestic manufacturing. And these are going to be a lot of great opportunities for small businesses throughout Central Florida. So you already know we passed the infrastructure law, biggest one in the history of the nation, to help fix the traffic around here. Think furthering the I-4 expansion all the way down through to Polk County, through Osceola. Think fixing water systems and electricity. Think about getting broadband across different areas. Think about expanding Sunrail, as well as environmental remediation. So one of the key things that I encourage you, if you're a small business owner, reach out to us, is to get your minority business enterprise license, to get your women-owned business enterprise license, because a lot of these contracts, to bid, there will be a certain amount of a percentage of the work that'll need to be done by WBEs and MBEs. So a lot of opportunity there with the infrastructure project. Florida's going to get $50 billion over the next 10 years. So that's a lot of work to be done to improve one of the fastest growing communities in the nation. The other small business opportunity, again, is going to be vendors of major projects that we're working on. So we just passed out of the House and out of the Senate our versions of the America Competes Act. It passed in a bipartisan fashion in both chambers. And what it is to bring more domestic manufacturing back to the nation. You know how many folks promised for years infrastructure and bringing back jobs from overseas? Well, we're doing it. And I was proud to be named to the conference, so I get to be one of the handful of House members that will negotiate with the Senate over the terms of it. Let's talk about what affects specifically here in Central Florida. People know about the car shortages we've experienced over the past year or two. You know, having worked with a lot of auto entrepreneurs, a lot of that's to do with microchips. And now we're making microchips just a few miles from here in Neo City, between Kissimmee and St. Cloud. We want to expand that. Right now we're making aerospace microchips, but we are negotiating with Ford Motor Company and a few other major companies to expand that microchip footprint. These are jobs that do not require a college degree. You either maintain the machines or you clean the place, because it can't have a speck of dust in there. And so Valencia has these programs, and they're going to be readily available for many Hispanics who are looking to get a higher paying career. And then of course aerospace, which we do in East Orange County, your Lockheed Martins, your Boeings, and others. So again, if you are a Hispanic who owns a small business and you're looking to expand your services, you want to work with our office to get your MBE, your WBE, because a lot of these things will be bid out. They're going to need contractors to work with. So great news for growth and jobs in Central Florida.
Okay, I have a question for you. Myself and a woman called Tatiana Fernandez, who works with me in the office on minority business development, we called at least 13 large construction companies to come to a meeting. Out of those 13, the only one that responded was the authority for the airport. That was the only one. We sent emails, we left messages, no one called us back. There seems to, and let's go on the assumption that the emails were correct and the phone numbers were correct, and that somebody did listen to the voicemails, okay? What is the recourse that we have when a construction company or any major corporation refuses to respond to people who are the small minority business companies who are seeking to do business with them. I've known for a long time that they're blocking Hispanic companies. I don't know about the other minority communities, but in the Hispanic community, we're being blocked. What is our recourse when you go through something that Tatiana Fernandez and I went through? We worked it for 2 months. Nobody was interested in meeting with minority business owners. What do we do about that?
So first, it has to be in a specific setting, which is there's a contract out to bid for a major project. Let's say it's Terminal C for the airport. Most of those companies have to have 10 to 15% minority business enterprise ownership. And if they are not utilizing that, there is recourse among the community for them not meeting that goal. Sometimes they do it with a sham. It's a company where just the owner is someone they found to put it together, and then they're not actually hiring folks from that community. So that also comes up sometimes, where they may have contracted with an MBE.
Well, these were big companies, though.
Oh, I mean,
so these guys are solid. They're big. Turner.
I mean, the small business that they worked with.
But if they don't respond, Darren, how do we? If they refuse to respond, in other words, they refuse to acknowledge letters, meeting requests, phone calls. What is the recourse of a small businessman who knows that he can supply the services that they need? Maybe they have friends they're giving the business to and they don't want to open the doors. I mean, it seems to be a closed closet that nobody can open.
So the recourse...
From the point of view of the minority companies.
If it's a federal project with these requirements, the recourse would be with the agency responsible, and those sorts of complaints can be submitted also to our office that we could forward to them. We can't tell them what to do, but we could bring that to light.
So
if it's a private project, then there is no recourse, because this is a private project, and these federal rules I'm talking about do not apply. The other thing I should mention is the states got rid of most of these rules. So if it's a state project, they don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's only now in local and in federal projects, in certain localities, that there are MBE and WBE enterprises and requirements. So some state projects, they actually have the exact opposite rule where you can't do that at all. So it also depends on the project, but if it's a private project or a state project, there is no recourse, because our state legislators and governors over the years have made that the law. But in the federal, if it's a federal project, your recourse is with the federal agency.
Why would the state not want that? Why would the state not want to grow their minority businesses and give them the opportunity?
That's a great question. You're going to have to ask them.
It's a political question. Is it party related?
I mean, I know that that's my value. And obviously I'm a Democrat. I've served in the Democratic majority under President Biden, and this is our values. But the state, that's just the law at this point. So sounds like some great question to ask some state legislators.
Yeah, well, we'll get to them in a little while, in the next shows. So what else is on your agenda going forward for the rest of the year?
So
locally, I mean, from where you can dab in, because I know you're federal, so you can't dab into everything, but where can you dab in to support the Hispanic community on those issues?
We have announced and just got approved in March 10 community budget funding projects that have passed along with the 2022 budget. So this is as local as it gets. We got funding for a community center in Lake Nona. We got funding for the Berlinski House, the arts house right here for Kissimmee. We got funding to help fix the water in St. Cloud. We got funding for a solar training project at Neo City, the same area that we're making microchips. We got funding for a solar project for Point Siena Valencia campus. We got a new fire station for Haines City. We got a new fiber optic cable connection to make it more automated at the multimodal center in Winter Haven, so jobs. And then we got an upgrade of streetscapes in Lake Wales in the district, as well as a mobile health crisis unit in Polk County. So a lot going on. All these ideas. Oh, and we just got funding to work with the Community Hope Center on a community housing project on 192 for workers who are struggling there. So we're now sorting through those projects for next year. All these, 9 out of 10 of them were local government requests. One was a need that you and I have talked on your show about for many years, is the need for more housing for folks working at the theme parks, many of whom are our fellow Hispanics, particularly here in Osceola. So now we're going to be sorting through, again, projects for this next year, and think public safety, like fire stations and police stations. Think helping out with clean water and clean air. Think economic development and upgrading downtowns to improve our quality of life. All these types of issues are going to be coming up, and economic development generally. So we're going to be going through that review again, but we were very proud to be able to deliver these 10 projects, and now we're going to go continue to do this job. And that's in addition to the infrastructure projects that are going to be coming down from the infrastructure law. We're going to expand Sunrail to the weekends. We're hopefully going to expand Sunrail into Polk County. We just announced a huge deal between Brightline and Sunrail. Sunrail is going to connect now to the airport. It's going to connect to Universal, SeaWorld, and iDrive, and it's going to connect to Disney. So
Nice.
Workers across Central Florida, if everything goes right, we're really working the Biden administration on this, and if we didn't pass the law, this would have never happened, by the way, but we did. And so big things, and then of course expanding I-4 all the way down through Polk County, all the way up through Volusia County. We had expansion number 1, the I-4 Ultimate, but now we're going to go beyond I-4 Ultimate, a $5.3 billion project. So we know we got to fix the traffic here in Central Florida. We're continuing to work on that. We know we have to work on higher paying jobs, and then affordable housing, something that we got to talk at length on the program today, so I appreciate that.
Affordable housing is critical right now because people are being thrown out of their apartments, literally, into the streets. I mean, it's happening, and it hasn't hit the news. I mean, the news wants to cap it. They don't want to say what's going on. But we will be doing a prayer march in August. We want to raise 5,000 people to march on City Hall in Orlando, and that's going to be in August. The prayer march is going to be in August. We want you to follow Facebook and look it up so that you can join us. You can join us on the web. Jesse, what's the website?
PrayerWalkForHumanity.org.
PrayerWalkForHumanity.org. PrayerWalkForHumanity.org. There'll be a form up there. You can register to volunteer. You can register to march. This is Danny Ramos on Hispanic Speak Out, and I want to thank Darren, the Congressman Darren Soto. He's always been available to the community to be very direct and be very open about what's going on in the community. He's not a guy that hides behind his desk. So we appreciate him for all the work he's done in the community. This is Danny Ramos on Speak Out. We'll see you next